Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. In a certain office that was occupied by 5 individuals, the atmosphere was extremely tense. For a very big reason, and everyone in there was starting to understand why. The Raikage had insulted the Kyuubi and forced him to take control and stir the place up a bit. Everyone felt the chakra that he was radiating. It meant that what Naruto had said was true, and they most likely weren't the first ones to know. Konoha most likely wanted him back, which left them at a standstill on what to do. Who are you? The Raikage asked quickly. He narrowed his eyes, he didn't want to give in that quickly. Foolish man, I'm the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto Uzumaki is my Jinchuriki, you should know what this means. He snarled. The Raikage's eyes widened, this was the real deal. His brain went into hyperdrive thinking about what to do. So it's true. The girl asked suddenly. The Raikage nodded numbly, they were looking at the real deal. The son of the Yondaime Hokage himself, they understood the gravity of the situation. Can you let Naruto back in control? The Raikage asked respectfully. He didn't want to make a mistake, this situation was a ticking time bomb. The Kyuubi slowly nodded and the immense pressure disappeared when Naruto regained control. Naruto Uzumaki, I hate to admit it, but I'm sorry for what was said earlier. The Raikage said quickly. Naruto nodded and began to speak up. Now that we got that ugly stuff out of the way, let's get down to business. Naruto said quickly. It was time to get everything settled. The Raikage nodded. I'm sure you could guess my reasons for leaving Konoha. If you want a bit more clarification on the reasons, here's the short story. Me being the container for the Kyuubi and combined with my heritage being unknown to only a few select people, I'm sure you can figure out the people's view on me. He said. The Raikage's eyes widened, putting the pieces together, it did make sense. They despised you, they thought you were a demon. I can see why you left. He said softly. Naruto nodded numbly. Everyone was starting to understand what he felt. Jinchuriki were most often, if not, outcasts of the village. I was tired of being lied to. I didn't even know about my parents until the Kyuubi told me. I couldn't take it and I finally decided to relent and take the Kyuubi's offer. He explained. The Raikage widened his eyes, believing the same Biju you held was very foolish and would most likely end up with you dead, but this boy took a leap of faith and look where it got him. What was the Kyuubi's offer? The Raikage asked. Naruto chuckled and answered the man. He told me that I could stay at the village and watch as no real improvement happened, or I could escape and becoming a missing nin and start my new life. He also said in exchange for a few favors he would train me how to use his chakra and abilities. Naruto explained. Everyone's eyes widened for the umpteenth time that day, it seemed the shocks just kept coming. This boy was truly something else. Now what have you come here for? The Raikage asked quickly. Everyone looked to Naruto as he sighed and began to speak up. Truthfully, I come with an offer. He said. The Raikage's interest rose at hearing this, he motioned for him to continue as everyone listened to him. As of now I don't have a home, and I'm not saying I want to be tied down to a village. I'm offering my support as a freelance mercenary, in exchange for asylum, if needed and some training to help me out in my travels. He said. No one was expecting that, he clearly thought this whole meeting out accordingly. The Raikage was weighing the deal in his mind, if he accepted he would get a very powerful ally that would only grow stronger in the future. A refuge wasn't that hard either, the training though made him think a bit more on it. What kind of training? He asked. Naruto looked at him and replied. Firstly, Kenjutsu to help my skill with this sword, and one Raiden Jutsu. He simply said. Naruto was trying to keep it as simple as he could to help his situation. The Raikage looked in thought again, the terms weren't that bad. He could handle them, however there was questions he needed to ask himself. Let's put a hypothetical out there and say you do become a freelance mercenary, who all are you going to give your allegiance to? He asked quickly. Naruto looked directly at him and replied. I would give it to Suna, Konoha if the situation was dire enough for me to help them. However, Konoha isn't one of my priorities now, I would stay away from Iwa and Kiri. He said. The Raikage smiled and knew this could work out. He looked at Naruto and spoke. If we are to do this, we must keep it a secret. We need a way to get in contact with each other. He said. Naruto nodded and thought about it. I could give you a summoning contract for foxes, you'd have enough to go back and forth between any village you allied with. The Kyuubi said suddenly. That's when Naruto's eyes widened, he still had the Toad contract. They could reverse summon him, he would need to break it firstly. The Kyuubi said he could give me a summoning contract for foxes, that way we could send messages back and forth. He said. The Raikage thought about it for a minute, it was a pretty good idea and it would keep the secret from getting out. Okay. Then that will work. He said with a smile. Naruto was about to speak up when he felt something off, with the recent use of the Kyuubi's chakra. It seemed to blend with his, thus granting him stronger control over it and it gave him enhanced senses. One of these was sensing chakra. You sense it right? He asked the Kyuubi. Everyone saw his silence and wondered what was up. Yes, a gigantic amount of it, most likely those two teams together. Their chakra is on the outskirts of Kumo. He heard. Excuse me Raikage, but it seems there is a problem. Naruto said suddenly. The Raikage's eyebrows raised as he heard him. What do you mean? He asked cautiously. Naruto sighed and explained. It seems Konoha isn't letting up on retrieving me. Thanks to the Kyuubi's influence I have gained heightened senses. I can feel a large mass of chakra outside Kumo. It's two teams together that were sent for me. I have to deal with them. He explained. The man, Darui spoke up. How do you plan to deal with two genin teams? He asked. Naruto smirked. He had already anticipated this situation and planned accordingly. If it is the teams I think they are, I have a plan to deal with them, knowing it would damage the relationship between Konoha and Kumo if I were to be seen fighting in the village. I already came up with it beforehand. I'm going to deal with them outside the village, so Konoha doesn't suspect Kumo's involvement. He said. Everyone was shocked. The Raikage was impressed too. The kid was seriously something else. The Raikage nodded. Very well, we will continue this meeting after you have dealt with them. He said. Naruto thanked him and left the tower to put his plan into motion, back inside of the office where everyone else who was present for the first part of the meeting. So what do you guys think of him? The Raikage asked. The girl was the first to speak up. He is obviously not to be underestimated, just by the way he spoke shows he can handle himself and can adapt to a situation if the need arose. She said. Darui nodded and spoke up. He clearly wasn't lying about being the Yellow Flash's son, Yugito is right. He will be a force to reckon with if he has the right tutelage. Add that to the Kyuubi and it only adds more to it. His offer wasn't that bad either. He added. The Raikage nodded and turned to the other man in the room. What do you think about him, B? He asked curiously. B looked in thought for a moment. He is very powerful indeed, those who cross him will bleed. He said softly. Yugito wondered what was going to happen to the two teams that were sent for him. If she did know, it would only concrete the fact that he was someone not to take lightly. I wonder what those teams will face. She asked aloud. They all were wondering what would happen, they would just have to ask him when he got back. Scene break, outside Kumo. As Team 8 and 10 were walking along the road to Kumo, they suddenly stopped when they heard something. It sounded like a person and it was behind them. They turned to see a little girl about 7 years old, her shirt was stained with tears. They were shocked at seeing someone like this. Your ninja's right, you have to help me. She screeched. They weren't expecting that. Kuranai was the one who spoke up. What's wrong? She asked softly. The girl sniffed and replied. My big brother is being held hostage by someone. She said. They widened their eyes and then narrowed them. Naruto wouldn't do that, would he? That's what they all thought. Being the kind souls they were, they knew they had to help. Lead the way, little one. Ino smiled. The girl nodded and turned around and started to run into the forest with everyone following her. If they were to see her face, they would see her with a devious smirk. Warning. A bit graphic. Soon after 5 minutes of running, they came across a thick part of the forest, tree dotted everywhere they could see. However, something caught Ino's eye. Tied against a tree was what seemed to be a boy with dark hair and torn clothes. He couldn't be more than 10 years old. He was covered in dirt and his eyes showed he was tired. Ino didn't even think about it and ran forwards, ignoring the cries of everyone else, and that is what started it all. Ino, wait up! Shikamaru yelled. They quickly followed her to find the boy tied. They were all shocked and angry. Who did this to you? Asuma asked seriously. The boy looked up with defeated eyes and replied in a emotionless tone. A boy with spiky black hair. He said I was needed for something. He said softly. Ino almost cried and looked at Asuma with a glare as he took his knuckle blades out and went to cut the ropes holding the boy. When the boy was finally free, they realized what had happened. It transformed into a clone of Naruto. It was a henge all along. Shit. Shikamaru cursed. He looked to see a line of explosion tags set up purposefully exactly where they were. It was too late though. A gigantic explosion rocked the forest as trees started to fall haphazardly. It was obvious that Naruto was using the situation to his advantage. The explosions kicked up a ton of dust, creating a window for Naruto move into action. Kurenai suddenly screamed out as she felt something stab her in the back. Kurenai! Asuma screeched out. There was only a little bit of visibility. Quickly Asuma used a wind jutsu to clear the area. They all looked to Kurenai to see a Senbon sticking in her. They looked to see Ino down unconscious. Naruto had already proven he had what it took to take them out. Asuma quickly pulled the Senbon out to see a green liquid on the tip. A poison, Asuma said aloud. Suddenly Kurenai felt her eyelids get heavy and she collapsed on the ground, knocked out. Quickly, back to back, Shikamaru shouted. There was 6 left. Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Hinata, Shino and Asuma. We fell into his trap. We should have known he would do something like this to get us. Asuma said aloud. Suddenly an insane laugh pierced their ears. It sounded like it was coming from everywhere. They couldn't pinpoint the source. Hinata started to get a bit creeped out and scared. Where are you at, Dobi? Kiba shouted angrily. Hinata was too scared and started to run away. That's when a clone jumped down and grabbed her. Sorry for this, Hinata, he said. With one quick chop to her neck, he laid her down unconscious. The group didn't seem to notice the fact he was missing Samahata and that he was a clone. You bastard. Why are you being like this? Kiba roared. The clone smirked and looked at Kiba. Hey Kiba, I got a question for you. The clone said suddenly. Everyone looked at him while he continued. Do you and Akamaru sniff each other's butts? I mean, you are a flea-ridden mutt after all. He mocked. Kiba started to growl as the clone was speaking. What? Does the mongrel have something to say? Go on, mutt, say something. He said quickly. Kiba stepped forward as the clone smirked. Shikamaru went to speak, however the clone already did what it needed to do. It gave Kiba the finger and dashed in the opposite direction. Get back here, you bastard. Kiba roared. Kiba then chased after him, however he should have known he was walking right into another trap. A few moments later more explosions were heard. Soon after the clone came back with Kiba's unconscious body. They were glaring at him as he dropped the body by Hinata's. Why are you doing this, Naruto? Shikamaru asked through gritted teeth. No one tried anything. They knew if they did try anything, something would go wrong and they would be down another member. They had no doubt that Naruto had more up his sleeves. That's very easy to answer, Shikamaru. I'm a missing nin with no reason to return to that hellhole. Yet the same village demands that they want me back just because I'm Minato Namikaze's son. They really think that all those years of being outcasted as the demon fox wouldn't affect my decisions. The clone answered. Asuma finally noticed something was off. You're a clone, right? There's no Samahata on your back. He said aloud. The clone chuckled and nodded. You're right, I am just a clone. That doesn't mean I'm going to tell you where the real one is. The clone smirked. Everyone was silent as the clone continued. I'm here to relay a message: give up and don't try again. If you don't heed my warning, I'll be forced to use more effective methods. The clone said. Suddenly everyone tensed as the clone walked towards them. Suddenly it poofed into smoke and disappeared. I think we should take the kid's offer and leave while we still can. Choji said aloud. Shikamaru grunted, but nonetheless couldn't agree more. They had failed, horribly. He had lured them straight into a trap. I agree. If he was able to fool us this much, imagine what he could do if we pissed him off. Shikamaru added. Asuma nodded and looked around the area. Naruto really did have them against the wall. If they didn't leave as he told them to, he would most likely unleash more and they wouldn't stand a chance. Naruto's skill set was too unorthodox, and combined with his knowledge of pranks, it only made it stack in his favor. Okay, everyone pick up someone and let's head back. Asuma said aloud. Everyone nodded and picked someone and hoisted them on their shoulders. Soon they all arrived back on the road, however they stopped and turned around when they heard someone drop behind them. It was Naruto, and it was not a clone. The four of them were shocked to see his new appearance. It made him look intimidating. Pitch black spiky hair, he was wearing a dark leather combat jacket with matching baggy shorts. It was obvious to them he was definitely ready to strike at a moment's notice. The jacket most likely held all his ninja tools. The sword Samahata was strapped to his back. They could see the tip of it exposed and it didn't have bandages covering it. Yep, he was truly ready to strike if the need arose. What do you want? Shikamaru asked. Naruto sighed and placed his hands in a surrender motion to placate them. Deliver a message to Ba-chan for me, also that pervert Jiraiya. Tell them this: I won't be coming back yet, eventually though. I have stuff that needs to be taken care of. Also tell Kakashi and Sakura to stuff it, along with those snot-nosed elders on the council. He smirked. They were flabbergasted. Part of them knew he would still protect his precious people if the situation called for his intervention, however part of them knew he was never going to be the same. They nodded numbly and watched as he turned around and walked towards Kumo again. Well, that was surprising, Choji said dryly. Shikamaru chuckled and spoke up. Tsunade's day wasn't expecting the outcome once again, however Naruto's message gave her hope. She wondered how long it would be before they saw their favorite knuckle-headed shinobi. Jiraiya was in the room along with Kakashi, Sakura and the two teams that had recently returned. Can you describe how he took most of you out? Tsunade asked quickly. Asuma nodded and spoke up. It seems he knew we were coming. He used basic principles to get at us. He baited us and took us out one by one, using stealth and unorthodox moves to get us. He said. Jiraiya wanted to hear this. He wanted to know how much stronger his pupil had become. Define unorthodox. Tsunade said. Shikamaru was the one to speak up. He was using underhanded tactics to get us. He lured us into a trap that had no escape route. He knew that we'd have to fight our way out. First there was a line of explosive tags set up to explode, then he used the debris and dust in the air to make his move and took out Kuranai with a poisoned Senbon. It was intended to make her sleep. He then started to use psychological warfare on Hinata and Kiba. Then he gave his warning. He knew that our numbers were down and would have to retreat eventually. Shikamaru explained. Sakura burst out laughing. You're lying. There's no way Naruto could be that clever, she said arrogantly. Shikamaru glared at her and spoke in a cold tone. You really don't know Naruto then. It's obvious he isn't as dumb as everyone thinks. He used his environment and situation to his advantage. If you don't believe me, why don't you make the 3-day trip to Kumo and try to take him by force? See if that works for you when he sends you back humiliated. He scoffed. Kiba held back a laugh as Sakura shut up. Kakashi just shook his head at his student's lack of ability to see the truth. Any idea when he would return? Jiraiya asked aloud. No one had an answer. Asuma was the one to speak up. He said he'd do it eventually, after taking care of some stuff first. However, who knows how long that could be? He shrugged. Tsunade sighed. She just had to hope that it would be soon. Okay then, you are free to go. Jiraiya, I have a mission for you though. She said suddenly. Everyone nodded and left the room, while Jiraiya stayed behind. What is it? He asked. She sighed and looked out the window at the village she held responsibility for. This is a mission to help ease my worries. I want you to go to Kumo and find Naruto. This isn't a retrieval mission though, just pick his brain and see how he is doing. She said. Jiraiya was surprised, but nonetheless nodded. Soon he was already on his way towards the land of lightning. Scene break. Kumo. Naruto found himself walking in the Raikage's tower currently. Darui instantly noticed him and walked up to him. He got a lot of odd looks and some cautious. It seemed that word spread about him. I take it you dealt with them? Darui asked. Naruto nodded. Darui gave a nod and turned around and motioned for him to follow him. Soon they were back again in the office of the Raikage and everyone was present again. The Raikage smiled at seeing the kid back. It seemed this could work out actually. Now that you're back, let's rough out the edges a bit of our deal. He said. Naruto nodded and listened as he continued. Let's get a few things right. First, you want the option of asylum if the need arises in your travels. As a freelance mercenary, you would work for Suna, Konoha, and Kumo. For your support if we need it, you want training in Kenjutsu and one Raiden Jutsu. He clarified. Naruto nodded as those were the terms. The Raikage nodded and continued. Asylum isn't a problem, so that one is cleared. As a freelance mercenary, we need a way to communicate. You said the Kyuubi would grant you a contract for foxes. That one is cleared. Now about training, we can train you in Kenjutsu. One Raiden technique is fine too. These are the terms listed. Do you have any problems? He asked for clarification. He knew Naruto would say yes, however he needed it for the paperwork. Naruto nodded and the Raikage smiled and stood up. Well then, I have to say it will be a pleasure working with you, Naruto Uzumaki. Now on to a more personal matter. He said suddenly. Naruto blinked and listened as he continued. I would like B to test your strength in a friendly spar. He said. Naruto grinned and replied. Sure, but what are the restrictions of this spar? He asked. The Raikage put his hand to his chin as he thought. Let's leave it at, no lethal moves, anything else is fine. First one to surrender loses. He said. Naruto nodded and started to follow the rest of them as they walked outside and towards a training ground. Soon everyone except B and Naruto stood on the outside. Yo bro, let's go. B said quickly. Naruto nodded and replied. Don't hold back. I want to be pushed to my limits. Naruto said. Everyone else widened their eyes. The Raikage smiled at seeing how the kid was. He faced fear head on and didn't care of the outcome. He knew how powerful his foe was and it didn't stop him. B suddenly got into a stance that surprised Naruto. The Raikage smirked and everyone else widened their eyes. What the? Naruto muttered. I wonder how Naruto will face B's acrobat stance. Yugito muttered. Everyone else wondered the same thing. Keep your guard up. This won't be an easy fight. This is a pure test of your skill. There won't be any chances for you to deceive and ambush your opponent. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto nodded and charged. He was testing the waters to see how B would react. Darui noticed this and instantly picked up what he was doing. He smiled, knowing the kid could be a very talented shinobi in the future. Naruto didn't know what to expect. If he knew how this stance worked, he wouldn't have charged in foolishly. In a split second, B made a weird move. It was like a dance move. He quickly did a one-handed handstand and his legs moved in a whirlwind motion. Naruto felt his cheek get sliced and the foot of the man kicked him and sent him flying back. What was that? Naruto thought. The Kyuubi was silent for a good bit. It seems this man has created a taijutsu stance that is as unorthodox and unpredictable. It's a tough one to get past, no doubt. It leaves him with quite the advantage. If you get in close, he would easily take you down. The Kyuubi said. He was hinting at something. Naruto understood what he had to do now. Everyone watched as he formed a hand seal. The Raikage was watching intently now. It seemed he was making his move. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto shouted. Suddenly 12 clones appeared and surrounded B. Darui suddenly got a bit more interested in the fight. Yugito was watching very closely. He was using the clones to help combat B's stance. She wondered how it would play out from here on. Shadow clones, huh? The Raikage smiled. This spar was becoming better and better as time went on. Suddenly all the clones started to turn to each other. Everyone wondered what was going on. Suddenly every two clones picked up a third and launched it towards B. It was then everyone felt the increased wind pressure. They looked to the real Naruto to see the chakra swirling in his left hand. Is that? Yugito asked aloud, stupefied. The Raikage nodded numbly. The Rasengan. Darui muttered. Naruto quickly charged as the clones were still airborne. B suddenly threw his swords, quickly dispelling the clones. He looked to the other clones charging in behind the ones he just finished off. He turned to the real Naruto to see him closing in with the Rasengan. However, something Naruto did shocked everyone, even B. He slammed the Rasengan into the ground, kicking up a ton of dust and debris from the released wind pressure. He used the power of the Rasengan to create a makeshift smokescreen. Yugito said suddenly. Darui nodded and looked at the fight unfolding. The kid's impressive, using the basic tactics in a fight to gain an advantage. The Raikage said. Yugito looked at the Raikage in shock. Raikage-sama, those are basics? She asked in shock. The Raikage laughed and explained. The techniques aren't, but the way he used them are basic. First he tested the waters to see how B would react. Then he used his clones to make B choose which one he would let through his defenses. After that he used the Rasengan to destroy some of the terrain to create a bit of a smokescreen like you said. He explained. Yugito stood silent as she watched the battle unfold. Darui was seriously impressed with the kid's practical thinking, no doubt about it. This kid was something else. They might actually be witnessing the rebirth of the Yellow Flash. If this kid continued to impress him, he might just have to take it upon himself to teach him a few things. He was wanting to learn Kenjutsu and a Raiden Jutsu. Show me what you can do, Naruto Uzumaki. Darui thought to himself. Naruto had a window now that made it so he could do something. However, it was short. There was no doubt in his mind that B had something to help him out of this situation. So he had to be fast. He charged in with an extremely sharp kunai. He let his senses guide him. He quickly stabbed B with the kunai in an unknown place, and used it towards his leverage and held on to the embedded kunai and did a sweep and knocked B off his feet. Suddenly the dust and debris cleared, giving everyone a look at the scene. They saw B on the ground and Naruto moving to strike. However, as Naruto went to continue his assault, B turned into a log. Kawarimi. He cursed. He turned around to see B behind him. Yo bro, that was a good move, though it's time for you to prove. He said aloud. Suddenly B jumped backwards and held his right arm up with the fist upwards. Everyone there got wide eyes as they knew what was coming. Raikage-sama, are you sure you're gonna let this go on? Yugito screeched. The Raikage just put up his hand. He stared intently at the battle with hardened eyes. Let's see what happens, Darui said dryly. However, his eyes were watching intently at Naruto. How will you face this, Naruto Uzumaki? He thought quickly. Yo bro, you best dodge, or your head will dislodge. B said. Naruto knew he was going to do something very dangerous. He felt he had no choice to do something equal. Sighing, he knew what he needed to do. He hoped he didn't lose control. Everyone watched as Naruto closed his eyes. It was obvious he was doing something. Then they all felt the demonic chakra. The chakra started to grow as he charged it. Yugito noticed his features starting to change. He's calling on the fox's chakra, she said. Everyone watched closely as the red chakra covered, however he wasn't done yet. Soon the chakra started to liquefy and bubble as it became transparent. They watched as two tails grew and were shocked when he opened his eyes. He got into a pounce position and waited for his moment to strike. It seems that when Naruto goes into his tailed forms, he starts to fight like an animal or beast, making him more unpredictable. It might just help him dodge B's attack. Yugito said aloud. Everyone watched as lightning formed on B's arm and he charged. Naruto ran on all fours to meet him. He jumped just in time to hover right above the arm that was aimed at him. He quickly used his claws to tear at the arm as B rushed by. He dodged the lariat of Killer B, and got a hit in as well. They were impressed, no doubt. B quickly powered down and walked over towards Naruto. They all watched as Naruto closed his eyes and started to regulate his breathing. He kept his mind clear and eventually dissipated the demonic chakra of the Kyuubi. He opened his eyes to see all four of them with smiles. "Yo bro, nice spar, you'll go far," B said with a grin. He held his fist out. Naruto smiled and bumped his fist. "So it's fair to say this boy has what it takes?" The Raikage asked loudly. Everyone nodded. Darui stepped over to the Raikage and whispered something in his ear. The Raikage's eyes widened and looked at Darui sharply. "Are you sure?" he asked seriously. Darui nodded with a strong face. The Raikage smiled and nodded back. "Then I say this, good luck Naruto Uzumaki," he said to Naruto. Naruto blinked and spoke up. "Good luck with what?" he asked confused. The Raikage chuckled and replied. "Darui has asked personally to train you in Kenjutsu and the Raiden Jutsu you wanted," he said with a grin. Naruto blinked and widened his eyes. He already had a trainer. This was going a lot faster than he thought. Darui looked at Naruto for a second. "I feel like you will have the potential to change the shinobi world forever, if we're gonna do this. We need to do it right," he said with a smile. Naruto nodded and listened as the Raikage spoke up. "So how long do you think you're gonna stay before heading out?" he asked quickly. Naruto thought about it for a good bit. "I think 2 weeks is enough to get a good bit of training in, and figure the rest of the details out," he said. The Raikage nodded and looked to Darui to continue. "I have duties in the morning, so in the evenings we will meet here to start your training. I'm warning you, I'm not going to go easy on you. I'm going to be blunt and straight to the point. That way you'll learn it and won't forget it," he said. Naruto nodded. "So what do you think you're gonna do in the mornings?" Yugito suddenly asked, intrigued. Naruto thought about it for a moment before replying. "Sage mode training in what the Kyuubi will train me in," he answered. They all were impressed that Naruto was working on Senjutsu. It wasn't an easy feat, and if he got the hang of it, it would only make him stronger. They all nodded and left him alone. It seemed this would work out. Eventually Naruto found himself wandering the village when he heard a very familiar voice behind him. "Hey, if it isn't the brat." It was male. Naruto turned around and was surprised to see none other than Jiraiya of the Sannin. He quickly grabbed the handle of his sword and prepared to defend himself. "What do you want, Arrow Sennin?" Naruto asked bluntly. Jiraiya quickly put his hands up in a surrender motion. Naruto calmed down and waited for his answer. "I'm not here to bring you back. Actually, that old hag wanted me to come here personally and see how you're doing. I have no ulterior motives," he said quickly. Naruto thought about it for a moment. "I don't sense any lies or deceit in his words," the Kyuubi added. Naruto relented and spoke up. "Very well, let's go find somewhere to talk," he said. Jiraiya nodded and followed him. Eventually they were sitting by a river outside of Kumo. Just in case Jiraiya tried anything, he would at least be able to go all out and not destroy a part of Kumo. "So what do you want to know?" he asked. Jiraiya looked at him for a second. "First, how come Kumo?" he asked quickly. Naruto chuckled and explained. "After I escaped from Suna, I had to make a choice, and Kumo was the least dangerous one for me. Kiri is obviously a very dangerous place to go. I hear it's very bloodthirsty over there. I didn't think Iwa would like the son of the Yellow Flash over there, knowing how much damage my father did on the battlefield to their forces," he explained. Jiraiya blinked. This was Naruto. "This couldn't be right. Man, you have changed," he chuckled. Naruto looked at him as he continued. "The old you wouldn't plan this far ahead in the game. It's no wonder those two teams lost easily. I heard you used some very dirty tactics," he said. Naruto just shrugged. Jiraiya decided it was time to ask another question. "How are you?" Personally, don't give me the abridged version either. He asked seriously. Naruto sighed and began to speak. I'm really happy, and excited to see how this will turn out. I've finally broken out of the cage, and moved on from everything that I had left. I don't get looked at like I'm a demon here, this is a chance for a new start, a new life. I'm going to make the best of it. He said softly. Jiraiya listened intently as he continued. I've already gotten on good terms with the Raikage and made a deal with him. He continued. Jiraiya was shocked, he interrupted Naruto as soon as he heard that. The Raikage? What deal did you make? He demanded. Naruto sighed and began to explain. I'm going to become a freelance mercenary. I've given my support to the Raikage in exchange for asylum and a few training sessions. I'm staying here for 2 weeks, then I'm going to head out. He explained. Jiraiya's eyes widened again. A freelance mercenary was something you didn't see too often. However, in Naruto's case, it could work out very well, and the world would be better off. Naruto did have a way to make friends with pretty much anyone. So now for a more business question. When do you think you'll return? He asked seriously. Naruto sighed and looked at him. I don't know, honestly I'm not going to walk in there all nonchalant and not expect a mass uproot of the whole place. I'm going to head to Suna first, so maybe after I'm done there I might drop in a night or two. I don't really know, he said softly. Jiraiya nodded and began to ask his next question. So how much stronger have you become? He asked. Naruto chuckled and replied. I'm going to be training with Darui, one of the Raikage's men. I'm gonna learn Kenjutsu and a Raiden Jutsu from him. Other than that, I've been training with the Kyuubi with my tailed forms, some Senjutsu practice. However, that is hard as can be. I've also started to use some tactics I've learned books, psychological warfare and other things that use deceit and stealth to win. He explained. Jiraiya blinked again as he heard the list. Damn, this kid went over the top, that's what he was thinking as he heard him. One piece caught his attention though. Senjutsu. Senjutsu. You're learning that on your own? He asked in disbelief. He knew how hard that was, and to hear the kid saying he was learning it on his own was something that he couldn't see happening. Yeah, I've only tried it a few times. I sensed the natural energies and used it to find a sleeping deer to kill it for food. Naruto chuckled. Jiraiya chuckled, but nonetheless he was utterly stupefied and shocked. Damn kid, you've come a long way from the little runt you were before. He snickered. Naruto just shook his head. Hey, you're right, he said softly. Jiraiya smiled as they sat, basking in the silence. Naruto was walking back towards the training ground. Jiraiya had already left and Naruto needed to meet Darui to begin his training. He wondered what he was going to learn. As he arrived at the training grounds he was supposed to go to, he didn't see Darui yet. So he sat down and waited. About 15 minutes later he heard footsteps behind him and turned just in time to roll out of the way of a large sword. He looked to Darui to see him with a smirk. HMPH, your instincts aren't too shabby. You may just be able to survive someone's attack if you are truly fighting. He said quickly. Naruto wondered what he meant. I can see by your face that you don't understand. Don't trust anyone to fight you with their true strength. Most of the time they play around and hold back, that is until you give them a reason to fight seriously. He explained. Naruto nodded and listened as he started again. That was most likely the case with Kisame. He underestimated you and he paid the price. The sword, Samahata, is very powerful. Hand it over. He said. That shocked Naruto. He was going to train him right. He quickly thought. Darui saw his expression and explained. You don't have the skill to wield such a weapon yet, until then you will use this. He said. Naruto turned to see him holding a wooden sword, a kendo stick to be exact. You want me to train with that? Naruto deadpanned. Darui smirked and nodded. Naruto sighed and relented. Handing over Samahata, he switched it out with the wooden sword. Darui motioned for him to follow him. As they walked a little ways they came across a target. This dummy will suffice for now. I'm going to show you a stance that Samahata would be wielded as. Practice with the wooden sword for a good bit and we will move on. He said. Naruto watched as he got into a kenjutsu stance. Naruto quickly copied it. Darui looked over to him and nodded. Good. Now practice a few slashes and swings to get a basis of how you would swing Samahata in this stance. Darui said. Darui sat back as Naruto started. Over the hour that he was doing it, Naruto learned pretty quickly. Of course there was some errors and Darui helped him with them. Eventually it was time for Darui to start something else. Okay, I got a question for you. Who was your Jonin instructor for your Genin team? He asked. He saw Naruto's eyes narrow as he sighed. Kakashi Hatake. He spat. Darui was surprised, for multiple reasons. One, he had the Kakashi Hatake, who was obvious a very famous nin for his abilities. The other reason was he seemed to loathe the man. Okay, besides the fact you had the Kakashi Hatake as your Jonin, why do I get the sense you hate every fiber of the man? He asked seriously. Naruto sighed and looked to the skies. He knew it was time to tell his story a bit more in depth. When I told the Raikage of my reasons for leaving the village, it was more like an abridged version. In reality there was a lot more that built up and made me accept the Kyuubi's deal easier. He said softly. Darui was taken back by his tone. He knew now that it was serious. He sat down and listened as Naruto continued. It all started when one of my teammates, Sasuke Uchiha, defected from the village to gain power from Orochimaru. He started. Darui's eyes widened. He knew the name Uchiha. For a member of their legacy to defect to Orochimaru was something very stupid to do. Orochimaru was a conniving bastard who would take advantage of anyone. Also the fact he was his teammate, he knew Naruto had felt pain for what happened. He started to understand where this was going. It was when I vowed to bring him back to the leaf that it all started to turn sour. My other teammate, Sakura Haruno, was a little fangirl and begged me to do it. In the end it was Chidori versus a Rasengan that sent us both back to the leaf covered in injuries. In the end both Kakashi and Sakura sided against me, saying I shouldn't have used that much lethal force to bring him back. He explained. Darui was shocked. It was one thing to promise to return your teammate who had already defected, but it was another thing for the same person you did it for to completely turn their back on you. He understood now why he hated the man. Okay, I can see now why you feel the way you do. I won't push any further. Tell me, what did the man teach you? He said suddenly. Naruto shrugged and explained. Nothing much. At the time of the Chunin exams, he ditched me for Sasuke. I was trained then by Jiraiya. Naruto explained. Darui's eyes widened again. Jiraiya. The Sannin. He quickly thought, stupefied. He quickly shook of his thoughts and spoke up again. You learned chakra control, right? He deadpanned. Naruto nodded with a chuckle. Good. The sword Samahata saps at your chakra, and with a Jinchuriki's large chakra reserves it would help if you had better control. However, since we only have 2 weeks to get you ready for when you leave, we're gonna take a shortcut. He said suddenly. Naruto raised an eyebrow and listened as he continued. Your shadow clones will transmit experience to you, when they are dispelled. So if you had clones work on chakra control exercises you'd learn it a lot faster. Then we'd have more time to practice Kenjutsu and the Raiden Jutsu. He explained. Naruto nodded and made the familiar hand seal. With a quick shout a whole group of clones appeared. Darui was impressed at the amount. He counted at least 30. It was about an hour later and Darui decided it was time to move on to something new. Okay, it's time to move on, Naruto. I'm gonna teach you a Raiden Jutsu that will help you out. It's a fairly basic jutsu, but with practice and skill it can be very deadly. He suddenly said. Naruto stopped and looked at him. He quickly nodded and listened as Darui continued to explain. It's called Raiden Jibashi. It allows the user to shoot a wave of electricity through their hands. Its power ranges from small surges to larger amounts that can easily incapacitate an opponent if it hits. He explained. Naruto nodded and watched as Darui went through a quick set of hand seals and shot off a short wave of electricity. Naruto widened his eyes. Sure, it was a small wave. However, he knew it could have more applications than what others thought. Okay, now you try. Darui said. Naruto nodded and went through the same hand seals, and sure enough he soon shot off a wave of electricity. It was about an average-sized wave. Good job. Now just keep practicing on what we did today for the rest of the week. After that, we will start to work with Samahata. He said. Naruto nodded and continued to train. Scene break 2 weeks later. The 2-week period quickly had passed by and Naruto had gotten surprisingly good at Kenjutsu. Darui was honestly shocked at how much he learned in such a short time, even his Raiden Jutsu was fairly good. Not to mention his combat skills had dramatically improved by a large margin. However, Darui had one last test for Naruto to pass. If he did, then Darui was sure Naruto would be fine on his own. Naruto currently found himself sitting down in the middle of the training ground. He was told to come here a little bit later for some reason. However, he decided to come at the usual time and use it to practice senjutsu. As Naruto sat down on the ground, he started to feel 4 chakra signatures. They were familiar. He turned to see Darui, the Raikage, B and Yugito. They were all here, probably here to see him off. However, a part of him knew there was something else. You wanted to see me? Naruto asked curiously. Darui nodded and spoke up. I have a final test for you to pass. If you do, I have no doubt you will be ready. He said. Naruto raised an eyebrow and asked the obvious question. What test? He asked curiously. Darui looked serious for a moment before speaking up. A sparring match, me and you. Use everything you have. I will not hold back. Darui said loudly. Naruto was surprised, however, he grinned nonetheless and got into a stance. Come at me when you're ready. He said loudly. Darui chuckled. The Raikage got a smirk on his face as he watched Darui walk forwards and get into a stance as well. He truly wondered what the battle would be like, if Darui and Naruto both went all out and didn't hold anything back. B was watching closely, Yugito was doing the same. They all watched as Darui suddenly covered his body lightning and vanished from his spot and charged at Naruto with insane speeds. Naruto only had a split second to duck and rolled out of the way as Darui pressed on him. It seemed Darui was starting off with taijutsu. Naruto had to admit, with the speed he was utilizing, it was very hard to predict his movements and adapt accordingly. It seemed endless. Every time Naruto would dodge, Darui just kept on pressing him onwards. It seems Naruto's only way to counteract Darui's taijutsu is with his own reaction time, however it's not going to work forever. Yugito said suddenly. Both B and the Raikage turned to her. The Raikage turned back to the battle and gave a huff. It seemed she was right, he couldn't dodge forever, he'd eventually slip up and pay the price. The question was, just how would Naruto get past this obstacle? They all thought. Back in the fight, Naruto's mind was going hyperdrive, thinking of any way he could possibly slow or completely stop Darui, so that he could get a chance to launch a counterattack. He only had a few ideas he could try. One, he could match Darui's speed with the Kyuubi's chakra. However, if he did that, he would most likely be using it for a long period of time, which would only drain him of chakra. He needed to conserve every ounce he could. He had no doubt this battle would go on for quite some time. However, he knew it would be the most effective way to stop Darui currently. Darui stopped for a second as he saw Naruto close his eyes and form a seal. He realized what he was doing and watched as the chakra rose around Naruto like a wildfire. The Kyuubi's chakra, Yugito said in awe. The Raikage watched closely as Naruto was covered in the demonic chakra. It seems different. He has no tails. He said quickly. B was the one to speak up. Not tailed state, it's pure chakra innate. He said. Yugito nodded as the Raikage listened to him. I wonder what he is planning. Yugito asked. The Raikage smirked and spoke up. We'll just have to wait and see. He said. The three of them turned their attention towards the battle as Naruto finished summoning the Kyuubi's chakra and was covered, head to toe in it. Naruto wasn't done though. The Raikage was the first to notice it. Is that sparks coming off the chakra? He asked suddenly. Everyone took a close look at it and was surprised to see it too. Yes, I think so, but what is it? Yugito added. B shook his head, he had no idea. I have no clue, whatever it is has no sense of deja vu. B said quickly. The Raikage smirked and waited to see what Naruto would do. Suddenly Naruto's whole body erupted with golden-orange fire that seemed to roar with newfound life. This was obvious to everyone that it was something he didn't show yet. The Raikage smirked as he knew this was something Naruto hid under his sleeve until the time was right. This was a very deadly combo. Especially with Naruto's trickster personality. The Raikage was seriously impressed by the kid's thinking. He didn't want to show all his cards at once. He had no doubt in his mind that Naruto had more to show. As Darui looked at Naruto now, it was obvious he was a little apprehensive. It only increased his shock as Naruto quickly formed the same hand seal he'd seen before so many times from Naruto himself. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto shouted. Suddenly clones poofed into existence, however, they had the same chakra covering them with the fire alight. Darui counted 8 clones currently. He knew Naruto could make a ton more. He smirked as he knew Naruto was being careful as well. All the Narutos suddenly charged. They were fast though. It seemed with the Kyuubi's chakra he could match Darui's speed. Quickly Darui ducked a fist from a clone aimed at him. Darui quickly delivered a roundhouse to the clone and watched as it poofed into smoke. It was a full frontal assault on him. Darui quickly realized that. He knew with clones coming at him it would be only a matter of time before he got hit, then Naruto would have a window to follow up on it. However, there was a problem. That fire. He didn't know what capabilities it had. It was obvious to Darui that it wasn't a Kaden Jutsu, so that meant that it was very versatile right off the bat. He had to watch carefully. Suddenly 2 clones charged as 2 more follow behind them. Darui quickly took out his sword and sliced through the first one that came near him, however the 3 left circled around him. He was surrounded. Suddenly he felt a large rise in heat. He quickly looked up to see Naruto himself launch a fireball at close range. It seemed whatever that fire was, Naruto had gotten good with it. It was obvious he was practicing quite a bit. Darui had only one choice. He quickly held his sword above his head and blocked the fireball, but he left himself open. That was all that needed to happen, as the clones charged in and delivered 3 punches to him. He grunted as the clones' punches connected. He gazed around to see more clones coming at him. It was time. No more holding back. The Raikage saw what Darui was doing and smirked. He wondered how Naruto would handle that. Darui quickly formed a hand seal as he prepared to use a jutsu. Naruto saw this and instantly felt the rise in chakra. Raiden. Kuropansa. Darui shouted. Suddenly all the clones disappeared as a black lightning formed around Darui and a black panther came charging out towards the clones, eating them up like they were nothing but candy. Naruto quickly dashed back and pulled out Samahata. He quickly unraveled the bandages covering it. Using the sword now, Darui thought quickly. Naruto quickly swung it forwards and the blade curved and struck the panther and easily split it in 2. Naruto, however, knew that Darui wasn't done yet. He quickly got on guard as Darui pulled out his sword too. Naruto smirked as he realized what was about to happen. A clash of kenjutsu. Both of them charged forwards with a ton of speed as a burst of wind erupted from the clashing blades. Each other them pressing hard to gain an advantage. Darui quickly twirled around and tried to sweep Naruto of his feet. Naruto, however, saw what was coming and jumped backwards. While he was midair he let Samahata stretch as it came towards Darui like a spear. Darui quickly rolled out of the way and watched as the blade's tip struck the ground, kicking up a ton of debris. Darui decided to take it up another notch. He gripped his sword tightly and lightning started to cover it. He suddenly charged once again towards the spot Naruto would land. Naruto quickly landed in a crouched position as Darui closed in on him. He quickly fed Samahata the demonic chakra he was using and it grew to considerable size and Naruto charged forwards with it aimed at Darui's blade. Both of them clashed again. However, with Samahada's increased size, it made Naruto have more power on his side, versus Darui's lightning-covered sword. Naruto started to press harder as Darui felt he weighed on top of him as he bended backwards. Naruto was easily overpowering him with the sword. Darui made one last effort and pushed every ounce of strength into it and pushed back on Naruto. Darui decided to push the two swords sideways to let a window open where he could strike. With Naruto's hands occupied with his sword, he had no way to block the incoming kick Darui sent his way. Naruto instantly felt the power behind it, as he skidded backwards. The kid is doing really well against Darui. The Raikage said suddenly. Yugito nodded and spoke up. I didn't expect Naruto to last this long honestly. No doubt Naruto is starting to pull out all the stops. She said quickly. B nodded and added his thoughts. A true wonder, like none other. He said softly. The Raikage nodded to both of their statements and turned his attention back to the battlefield, with a single thought in his mind. How would it end? None of them had that answer though, they just had to wait and see. Naruto knew Kenjutsu wasn't going to be the way to win this. Darui was just too experienced in that style. So he had to use something else, something he couldn't counter easily. That left one option. The tailed forms. However, there was a problem. He wouldn't be able to use it that much, since he already used a good bit of his own chakra in the Kyubis. He wasn't going to last that long in a tailed form before he reverted out of it. He knew he needed to increase his reserves, but that would come at a later date. It was either the tailed forms or a test of endurance. Which Naruto had no doubt in his mind, that Darui would win. It was obvious, he was Kumo ninja. They were obviously stronger than most and not to be underestimated. He quickly stabbed Samahada in the ground and prepared. Naruto quickly called on all the chakra he could muster. As he finally felt himself reach the limit, he knew it was time. It seems this fight is going to end soon. Yugito said suddenly. The Raikage looked to her as she spoke again. He's calling on all the chakra he can muster, you can tell by the slowed breathing. He's almost exerted himself of his chakra, he's going to attempt a last effort to end this once and for all. She said quickly. The three of them looked to see Naruto standing still as his eyes were closed. Suddenly his chakra bubbled and liquefied as three tails formed. As his eyes opened, the pupils were sharper and more animalistic. Darui knew now this was going to be the last attack. Naruto was coming with every ounce of strength he had left. Darui smirked, and knew he had to do the same to match it. Suddenly one of the tails grabbed the handle of Samahada and pulled it out and wielded it. The chakra seemed to make it stronger as it absorbed the demonic chakra slowly. Everyone was shocked at seeing that. It seemed the Kyubi's chakra could act on its own, without Naruto controlling it. It was a very deadly combo as they realized the possibilities. Suddenly Naruto held out one hand and started to form a Rasengan. This was going to be the end, he was going to make sure of it. Either Darui would have to dodge the Rasengan or Samahada, he couldn't dodge the other though. Naruto was sure of that. It seemed Darui noticed it too, he smirked as he understood the situation. It was good fight. Naruto had already passed. It was time to finish it. Both of them charged, brimming with extreme amounts of power. They both used everything they had left. As Naruto neared Darui, the tail swung Samahada. However, Darui chose to block it with his own sword. The sword would do a lot of damage, however the Rasengan could be contained if he the chance. With his free hand, Darui covered his hand in the black lightning. He was intending to have his free hand take the blow of the Rasengan. With it covered his black lightning, it would take some of the damage. When both jutsus met, it was enormous. Both of them were pushing on each other, however, one needed to give. The Rasengan would explode soon, Darui knew that. It was only a matter of time, and it did. The blast repelled both of them backwards into the ground. The three on the sidelines rushed in to see the damage. They pulled Darui up to see his arm blackened as the Rasengan did more than he thought. Damn, that hurt, Darui muttered. They all chuckled and helped him up. Let's check on Naruto, Yugito said quickly. They all nodded and walked over to see Naruto crawling out of the hole he made. It seemed the chakra cloak absorbed most of the damage. Except for the fact of his chakra exhaustion, he was otherwise fine. Damn kid, you got balls. The Raikage said loudly. Naruto let out a chuckle and stood up. So how was that? He asked Darui. Darui chuckled and spoke up. The journey from Kumo to Suna was a very long one. No doubt about it whatsoever. So there was no point in rushing the trip at all. Naruto was casually walking along the road towards his destination, however he wasn't stupid. He had his guard up the whole time. He wasn't going to let himself get ambushed by him making a foolish mistake. So what's your plan? You can't just waltz into the village and request an audience with the council. With the cage recently dying, there's no doubt in my mind that Suna is on a extreme guard to any deceit or lies. Especially with them knowing about you already, that's what your former teammate and sensei was there for after all. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto cursed as he realized the fox was right. It would be extremely foolish to expect them to believe him that easily. He'd need some proof. He knew it wouldn't be easy though. This time you're on your own, you have to learn to do things like this on your own. Think of it as your next lesson. You need to get them to believe you're the son of the Yondaime Hokage. He said suddenly. Naruto went wide-eyed, then chuckled, but nonetheless he nodded. It was a challenge to him, and he'd gladly accept it. Bring it on. However, that left him with the question of how he would do that. It was obvious they would need a push. So that left him with a few options. 1. He could use the tailed forms and easily show them he was the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. However, that left him wondering how would they take it. It could have a good effect or a bad one. That left him with his other option. It wasn't as risky as the first one. However, it was something personal and it could prove risky in the future. It was washing out the hair dye and returning to his natural hair color. If he did that, he would no doubt look like a younger Minato and the resemblance would be easy enough to see. Also, it left him open to being recognized a lot easier. However, there was another part of him that said it and let them come. They'd see later that he wasn't someone to be messed with. So he quickly got up and walked into a nearby forest and walked towards the sound of rushing water. He soon came upon a river, and sat down by it. If anyone were around the area, they would see him dunk his head underwater as the river rushed through his hair as it washed it out and carried it downstream. Slowly, but surely, the black hair dye faded and Naruto's original blonde hair came into view as he whipped his head back out of the river. However, as he pulled himself on the bank, he noticed something that alarmed him. His spiky blonde hair had red tips. He quickly blinked and rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't imagining it. Kyuubi, what is this? He asked quickly. Naruto took a piece of the hair and pulled it down to eye level. Sure enough, the tips were red. Due to your use of my chakra as much as we have been using, its influence will have some effects on your appearance. This is the beginning, however this is something to be expected, and it doesn't have any negative effects either. He heard the Kyuubi explain. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he heard him. What can I expect? He asked quickly. The Kyuubi was silent for a good bit before replying. More pronounced features, such as sharper canines and nails, nothing too crazy. Some changes will take longer to happen. The more you use the chakra and the tailed forms, the stronger the influence it gives. Which in turn drives the changes to happen a lot quicker. The Kyuubi said. Naruto wondered for a second of what else could happen. I'm not going to suddenly grow a tail or two, am I? He asked quickly. The Kyuubi chuckled and spoke. No, nothing like that. That would only happen if we decided to merge. The Kyuubi said quickly. Naruto looked confused after hearing that. Merge? What do you mean? He asked suddenly. The Kyuubi was silent again for a bit. In dire situations, in order to save a host's life, the Biju can perform a process that would merge the two souls together, resulting in the host becoming the Biju themselves afterwards. It is cases like this that require such a cautioned amount of thinking to them, due to the fact that the process cannot be reversed. he explained. Naruto shook his head and stood up. There was nothing he could do about it. It was pointless to try to avoid something he had no control over. He learned that the hard way already. Now it was time for more important matters. Getting to Suna. That was a very long distance to travel from where he was. What's your plan? The Kyuubi asked suddenly. He knew something was going off in Naruto's mind. I know for a fact it's going to be a long journey to go. I'm not even a quarter away from Kumo. I'm not about to do this the same way. I'm not as stupid to know now that word would start to travel. It will soon come full circle. People will eventually find me, and I'll most likely have to fight them off. Everyone will want me for ulterior plots. He quickly thought. The Kyuubi snorted, but it had a sort of amusement behind it. You need to find somewhere you can rest upon in the wilderness. You have no idea how long many days you will be stretching in these journeys. Make it a safe house of sorts. It would be wise to say that you cannot rely on Kumo to provide you with a sudden need of a place to stay. This way you'd have a hideout you could lie low, heck make a few more across the elemental nations. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto looked up at that thought. It was pretty good idea too. He also had something else he wanted to do. He got a big grin on his face as he started to think about it. If he did it right, and got away successfully, which he had good faith that he could do it easily, it was something to him to test his stealth. The Kyuubi was silent as it picked up on his thoughts. He wondered what he was up to. What are you thinking of, boy? You've clearly got something plotted in that head of yours. I can tell by that devious grin you have on your face. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto stopped for a second and chuckled. Scene break. Konoha. Tsunade waited for Jiraiya to come. She received word that he just arrived at the gate. Before she knew it, the Sannin had quickly arrived and opened the door and stepped in. He didn't really feel like making any grand entrance. He knew what this meeting was about. He did have a lot to tell as well, so it was better to get it over with. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya with an expectant face. She definitely wanted news. She hoped it was good too. So what did you learn? She asked quickly. Jiraiya smiled and sat down. I learned quite a bit. I will say the boy's personality has changed quite a bit. He started off. That made Tsunade raised an eyebrow as she was confused. Changed? How so? She asked quickly. Jiraiya sighed and began to explain. He has made a complete 180 change. You wouldn't even recognize him if you saw him. His whole appearance has changed. The only reason I was able to know it was him was the fact I could sense the fox's chakra. He's observant, cunning and clever. He started. That took Tsunade for a loop. Explain. Was all she said. Jiraiya took a serious expression now. The boy has been training hard. I can tell he's leagues above what most people would assume. For starters, he has Samahata. He also has been learning Senjutsu on his own. He's learned quite a bit. He managed to make a deal with the Raikage to train him, in exchange for his service as a freelance mercenary. He explained. That shocked Tsunade completely. Being a freelance mercenary was very risky. If Naruto could successfully pull it off, he would change everything. Judging by the look of Jiraiya's face, there was something else. What else is there? She asked quickly. Jiraiya looked solemn for a moment. He said he'd return eventually. Something about needing to take care of something. He said. That shocked Tsunade again as she digested his words. Are you sure? She asked suddenly. Jiraiya nodded as Tsunade sighed and had a sad smile on her face. She knew it would be a good bit before she saw him again. Jiraiya had a serious expression as he started to speak. What of the council? How are things going on? There has to be some kind of backlash as the secret finally reached the public. He said quickly. Tsunade sighed and looked at him. The council is demanding I try everything I can to bring him back. However, I know it is best to leave him be. We can't risk antagonizing him. If he was smart enough to defeat Osamu's and Kurenai's teams with an ambush, imagine what he will be able to do that a few weeks ago. Imagine a few months or a year, he surely wouldn't hesitate anymore. She said softly. Jiraiya put his hand to his chin as he thought about it. Any of the conniving little bastards try anything? He asked suddenly. Jiraiya knew how the people viewed Naruto. His image among the populace wasn't good. There's one I might have a problem with, Danzo. He would be the most likely to act on his own. Knowing his moniker of Shinobi of Darkness, she said suddenly. Jiraiya scowled at the mention of the man. He knew all too well what the ex-commander was like. No man or woman in their right mind should trust the bastard. If he would try something in an attempt to get Naruto, how would the boy react? That is what he was thinking. That bastard would be the one to do something fishy. My question is, would he underestimate the boy like everyone else? He suggested quickly. Tsunade was silent after hearing that. If Danzo does let arrogance and pride blind him of the situation, he will most likely regret it. She said quickly. Jiraiya nodded and knew it was true. Danzo wasn't someone to act without hesitation or rushed thoughts. He was decisive and cunning. He probably heard about the two teams' failures and realized Naruto was suddenly growing stronger. Soon enough, that he would be able to stand against him, if the need arose. Boy, would that be a sight to see. Naruto was surely growing beyond anyone's perceptions of his strength. That fact was proved alone with his change. There was no doubt in his mind that they would soon be seeing the rebirth of the Yellow Flash. He had no idea just how true that statement really was. Is Root still active? Jiraiya asked suddenly. Tsunade was silent after hearing that. Any shinobi with a single brain cell regarding Konoha's history knew that name. It was officially disbanded by Hiruzen during his position as third Hokage. However, there are some reports and questions stating it continues to operate hidden. Danzo is still most likely the leader of it. She said softly. Jiraiya groaned as he heard her statement. It was most likely true. He knew how conniving and shady the man was. After all, he wasn't known as the Shinobi of Darkness for nothing. That was a fact, simple as that. He decided he would need to keep a closer eye on him with his spy network to see what was going on. Well, I'll keep an eye on him with my spy network. You should do the same. I'll let you know if I find anything, or if Naruto does something new. He said suddenly. Tsunade nodded with a sigh and watched as the Sannin vanished with a shunshin. She then leaned back in her chair as she sighed with contempt. Her day wasn't over yet. No, not by a long shot at all. She still had to meet with the council, and she knew it wasn't going to be pretty. It was time to show them who really held the power in the village. Before anyone knew it, she had left the Hokage Tower and started on her way towards the meeting place. She mentally prepared herself for what this meeting would entail. She knew without a shred of doubt that it would definitely get heated at one point. She soon found herself pushing open the doors to the meeting room. Inside the room was a small table with 4 chairs. The meeting with the civilian council was about to begin. Danzo, Homura and Kaharu were all waiting for her to arrive. Welcome, Lady Tsunade, Kaharu said in a snide tone. It was obvious to Suand that the woman didn't like her very much and disagreed with her actions towards Naruto. It was a well-known fact that most of the elders in the village still didn't like Naruto and saw him as the demon brat. She knew now, with his heritage revealed, things were going to be very different. However, she knew they wouldn't get anywhere. I assume we all know what this meeting is about, so let's get straight to the point. Tsunade said quickly. The rest of them just huffed or scoffed at her statement. Why'd you hide the boy's lineage? Homura asked quickly. Tsunade scoffed and spoke up. This whole village hated Naruto for being the Jinchuriki for most of his life. I wasn't going to jeopardize his situation anymore by revealing his true parentage. You seem to forget the fact Minato sealed the Kyuubi in his son. It would only be more harmful than good. She said swiftly. Danzo scoffed then chuckled. Yet, he had acted on his own will many times. What did that prove? We know the brat was able to survive on his own. He said loudly. Tsunade glared at him. Kaharu decided to speak up. Let's get past the trivial stuff. We must get him back to the village. What have you done to try to get him to return? She asked quickly. Tsunade laughed loudly. Oh, you're mistaken. I'm not going to do anything. she said in a mocking tone. Homura glared and shouted out. Why not? You know the power the boy has. Combined with his heritage, he will only grow further. He slammed his fist on the table as he raged. Tsunade shook her head and glared at him. He left on his own accord, and you seem to forget the fact the village despised him for the longest time. You really think he'd return? I'm not going to strain any relationship I currently have with him by trying to force him to return. That would be foolish and would only push him further away, she said loudly. Their eyes widened as they heard her tone. It was one of finality. Nothing more to be said about the matter, or there would be consequences. However, Tsunade knew they would still push her. You say this, yet you know the gravity of the situation. Word spreads fast throughout the elemental nations, he's technically up for grabs for anyone. Danzo said quickly. Tsunade smirked and spoke up. We both know what you want, Danzo. You want a weapon that is effective without question. You are right when you say I know of the gravity of the situation, however, I know more than you. Word does spread fast, and I can personally assure you that Naruto's situation is out of our hands. Nothing we do can bring him back, she said loudly. The three of them narrowed their eyes. What do you mean? Koharu asked quickly. Tsunade chuckled and began to prepare to drop the bomb on them. She knew, however, that she needed to be careful. Danzo was more likely now to try something, so she had to be careful and not give him anything to go on. I had Jiraiya travel recently to Kumo, where we know Naruto was currently. His mission was a personal one, to gather info and report back to me. She started. They all widened their eyes. Danzo seemed to have a hungry look in his eyes. Damn bastard, you're foolish to think you'll be able to do anything. Tsunade thought quickly. What did he learn? Homaru asked quickly. She chuckled and began to speak again. He told me that the boy has changed considerably. He had foregone his personality and adapted to a new one. This one is very dangerous and conniving. The first thing Jiraiya said to me was it was a 180 change and you wouldn't recognize him. The fact of the matter is he is no longer the Naruto Uzumaki you people think you knew. She continued. They all started to chuckle and laughed. Please. You really believe that the demon brat, who was the dead last of the academy, who also failed the exam more than once, that this boy is completely different? Koharu asked in a snide tone. They all chuckled even more. You must realize that the statement is made up right. Surely Jiraiya said that to cover up for his failure of a student. Homura added in an arrogant tone. Tsunade's eyebrows started to twitch as her anger rose. She was going to be nice and lay it on them easily and smooth. Not anymore though. It was time to drop the whole ing bomb on them at once. Really, you are all stuck in the past. You seem to forget that he not only proved this village wrong on multiple occasions. I remember the report of the two teams that failed to bring him back. The ambush he devised was something to be remembered for sure. To take both of the team's strengths and weaknesses and use them against them to completely send them home with 4 people unconscious is a feat alone. I remember them saying he had Samahata, the legendary sword of Kisame Hoshigaki, who evidently made a mistake and paid the ultimate price. Not to mention that failure of a student. You guys seem to believe him as happened to make a deal with the Raikage, in which he got many things out of it, all for his support as a freelance mercenary, training with one of the Raikage's personal shinobi in asylum there. It's obvious the boy has grown beyond anyone's imagination. She spat out. She took some sadistic pleasure in seeing the utter shock and stupefied expressions that their faces took. She got the message through, however she wasn't done yet. I will not force him back. He will return only if he wants to, she said with authority. None of them had any words, they all looked up suddenly as Tsunade got up. This meeting is over, there will be no more discussions on this matter. That is final, she said. She swiftly turned around and stormed out of the room, leaving a shocked council in her wake. However, she knew there was always going to be problems. Tsunade currently awoke with a raging headache and a hangover. It had been a few days since the council meeting was done, and she wasn't done yet. It was time to deal some punishments. The council be damned. She quickly had Anbu bring Sakura and Sasuke. Kakashi would be taken care of later. The moment they both arrived in the tower, they knew they were in deep shit with her. Just by her face as they walked in the door, it was all they needed. Tsunade quickly ushered the Anbu out of the room and began to speak. You two have been the cause of all my problems as of the late, and it high time someone told you off. What were you two thinking? She shouted at the end. Sasuke just rolled his eyes as he heard her. Sakura looked terrified at hearing that. As of now, Sasuke Uchiha, the whole Uchiha library is donated to the public library instead. She stated. Sasuke growled as he heard that and glared at her. You think you can do this? I'm the last of the clan. He shouted in protest. Tsunade slammed her arms on the desk as she stood up. Listen up, brat. You being a Uchiha doesn't mean jack shit. I don't give a damn about your clan. He said loudly. He flinched he heard her tone. But you can't do that to Sasuke. Sakura shouted. Tsunade glared at her. You lady need to keep your mouth shut, you're next. She said. That's when Sakura glared at her tone. Because of you girl Naruto is gone, I'm no longer teaching you anything and you have a 1-month suspension. She shouted. Sasuke just glared at her. Sakura felt fear from her. What is your problem, bitch? Sasuke said loudly. Tsunade glared at the boy. You're going to T&I boy, best prepare for a fun time there. She said quickly. He looked at her with a fierce glare. You can't do that. I'm an Uchiha. He shouted in protest. Tsunade glared at him. An Uchiha? Like I give a damn, you defected to Orochimaru to gain power for revenge. You're lucky I'm not ordering your incarceration. She said loudly. Sasuke slammed his fists on her desk and glared at her. Anbu, escort him out into Ibiki Morino, please. She said loudly. Suddenly 2 figures appeared with masks and grabbed Sasuke by his arms. Oh, and I personally request Anko Midarashi to interrogate him. She said suddenly. The 2 shivered as they heard that name, they knew who she was. They also knew how sadistic she could be. Sasuke Uchiha would not have a fun day at all with her. Bring on you bitch. Whoever that whore is, she can kiss my. She won't get shit from me. Sasuke shouted angrily. The 2 Anbu's eyes widened under their masks. If Anko heard that, Sasuke might not like what she do. Sasuke glared at Tsunade kicking and screaming as he was dragged out of there. Sakura glared at Tsunade as she watched what happened. How could you do that? She shouted. Tsunade glared at her again. You have no right to say anything about this matter. Sasuke Uchiha abandoned Konoha to gather power in a pursuit of blind rage. He's lucky he didn't get put in a cell the moment he arrived in the village. She said loudly. Sakura just looked down as she heard Tsunade. I am hereby disbanding Team 7, following your 1-month suspension. You, Sasuke and Kakashi might get a second chance. She said. Sakura looked up at her with tears. Why am I the one getting the punishment? She screeched. Tsunade shut her up with her glare. You're not the only one. Sasuke will have more done later to him. Kakashi isn't even here yet for me to discuss his punishment. She said quickly. Sakura looked at her and went to speak up, however, she was cut off by Tsunade. That is all. There is nothing more to say, you have been warned. Any further disobedience will result in more severe punishment. She said loudly. Sakura gulped and nodded meekly. She quickly scurried out of Tsunade's office. Back inside, Tsunade sighed as she prepared for the next part of her day. Anbu, she called. Suddenly 2 masked guards appeared and bowed before her. Hokage-sama, the leader of the 2 said. Tsunade sighed and began to speak. Bring me Kakashi Hatake, she ordered. They both nodded and vanished in a swirl of leaves, already on their way to complete the order. Before she knew it, Kakashi was standing in front of her. Ma, what's with the long face Tsunade-sama? He said lazily. His eyes instantly widened when he saw her glare increase tenfold. Yup, he was in deep shit. He instantly straightened up and spoke in a respectful tone. Lay it on me, I know this is about punishment for the incident with Naruto. So let's skip the bullshit and get straight to the point. He said suddenly. Tsunade was a bit surprised by his sudden change in tone. He knew what this was about. That was good in her mind, however, she wasn't about to cut to the point and deliver his punishment. No, he needed to be thrashed a bit. You're damn right it's about that. Now, before we discuss your punishment, would you like to explain why you thought it was a good idea to criticize Naruto in making a decision that saved his life? She said suddenly. Kakashi was obviously not expecting that to come first. He sighed as he knew, he wasn't going to get off that easy. I know I had no right, however, he used a Rasengan that was powered up by the Kyuubi. Sasuke could have died as well, it's my job as their sensei to instruct them, whether it's right or wrong. He said. Tsunade chuckled, then spoke up. You were their sensei. She said. Kakashi blinked and spoke up. Excuse me? He asked confused. Tsunade glared at him and began to explain. As of now, what's left of Team 7 is disbanded, Sakura is on a month suspension. Sasuke may never become a shinobi of the leaf again. It all depends on how these next few weeks play out for him. She started. Kakashi started to feel a gnawing sense of impending doom. As for you, since you deemed it necessary to barely teach Sakura or Naruto anything, in favor of the brat Uchiha, you are hereby ordered to help Iruka Yumino in teaching at the academy for 1 month. She dropped the bomb. Kakashi's face quickly grew into an expression of pure horror. It was obvious that he clearly wasn't expecting her to say that at all. He couldn't believe what he heard from her. What? He sputtered out. Tsunade smirked and began to speak again. You heard me, and you better not even be late once. If you are, well, you might find those precious books of yours burned to a crisp. She said. Kakashi started to sweat badly. He knew when he was beaten. The look on Tsunade's face told him that much. She meant business, and no bullshit. Fine, you got me, I'll do as you say. He said quickly. Tsunade smirked and spoke again. You're damn right you will. Now get out of my sight. She said quickly. He nodded and vanished in a shunshin. She quickly called the Anbu again. Before she knew it, they had left and Iruka had appeared in her office. Hokage-sama? He asked confused. She sighed and began to speak. You're not in trouble. I called you here to inform you of a recent event. She said. Iruka's face grew somber as he realized it had to do with Naruto. What recent event? He asked quickly. Tsunade sighed and started to explain. With the recent incident with Naruto, I had recently delivered some punishments. Kakashi Hatake has been ordered to help teach you at the academy for 1 month. I made sure he wouldn't be late either. She said. Iruka was instantly surprised, and a little worried. Are you sure it's a good idea to have him teach? He asked suddenly. Tsunade shook her head and spoke up. Not necessarily. I think he just needs some humiliation. Hopefully, after this he will learn to not repeat his mistakes he already made before. She said. Iruka nodded after hearing her. Very well. I'm sure it will be fun to have him there for a good while. He said. Suddenly an Anbu barged into the room. Tsunade glared at the masked person who entered the room. Why have you interrupted me? She asked seriously. The Anbu cleared his throat and spoke. There is a problem, Hokage-sama. He said. Both Tsunade and Iruka raised an eyebrow. What could be wrong? How little they knew, when they found out, how drastic the effects were going to be. Nothing could prepare them for what was coming. Scene break. A few days earlier, Naruto had just entered the Land of Fire a few hours ago. The Kyuubi had yet to figure out what he was planning. He was intending on finding out now. So will you tell me what you're planning? He asked his host. Naruto chuckled and smirked. Well, let's say, if what I'm planning goes like I want it, I'll be even more powerful, and I'll be 1 step closer to having the power I need to prove people wrong. He replied. The Kyuubi didn't know what he meant. Spill it, was all he said. Naruto chuckled, but nonetheless nodded. We're an hour or 2 away from Konoha, and by the time we get there, it will be already dark, so most of the shinobis will have gone inside for the night, only the Anbu will be patrolling. He started. The Kyuubi quickly interrupted him. What are you planning? He asked suddenly. Naruto chuckled again and explained. Simple. I'm going to break into the Namikaze estate and grab some scrolls. Maybe raid the library, if they have one. He replied. The Kyuubi was silent for a good bit, then it burst out laughing. Damn, you're clever. Okay then, what's the full plan? You can't just barge into the estate, take some scrolls and leave without expecting someone trying to stop you. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto nodded to his statement. He knew it was true. We're going to use the ANBU's patrol to our own advantage. He said quickly. The Kyuubi, once again, didn't know what he meant. How so? He asked. Naruto chuckled and began to explain. I know the ANBU's patrol like the back of my hand, after all I had been running from them and escaping them since in my childhood. I easily know the alleyways and escape routes to take. On to the patrol. At any time, there is about 9 or 10 guards on patrol on the wall, to cover the whole thing, usually in pairs of 2, with a few odd pairs as well. Inside the village is a bit tougher, they are on top of the roofs. Now you might say that's a bit too risky. Usually it would, however, around midnight, the shifts change. So a window is opened as the guards change shifts. About 15 to 30 minutes precisely. He explained. The Kyuubi was silent for a while. So you plan to sneak your way in during the patrol, then escape during the shift change. What about a backup plan? What happens if you run into an unforeseen obstacle? He asked. Naruto sighed. The Kyuubi kept bringing up good points. A distraction and diversion. How about setting up a line of explosion tags on the outside wall? I'll have a few shadow clones waiting to be dispelled, and when I dispel one, the others will trigger the explosion tags. He said. The Kyuubi smirked when he heard that. Pretty clever too. He said. Naruto grinned and started to sprint as fast as he could towards the village. Before he knew it, he was atop the fourth's head on the Hokage monument. He quickly summoned a couple clones and gave each a stack of explosive tags. Each tag was connected by a fuse, it was something he rigged up the other night, he planned ahead for this. Okay, you guys know the drill. Set these up around the outside wall. He said. They all nodded and began to go to work. About half an hour later, the clones came back and told Naruto that it was done. Naruto then dispelled all of them, but 2. He then told them what to do. Right. When one of us dispels, the other will light the fuse. One of the clones said. Naruto nodded and turned to the setting sun, he was waiting for the time to move. Once it set, he would begin. He suddenly sat Samahata down by the clones, it would only get him caught if someone saw it on his back. He grinned, as the sun finally set. It was time to go to work, looking back to see the clones sitting around by the fuses, waiting for the sign to light them. He slid down the monument and landed near the wall. He suddenly stopped as he heard footsteps above him. He quickly crouched into the bushes nearby to avoid being seen. The Anbu guards wouldn't stick around for long, they would continue the cycle. That would give Naruto about 5 or 10 minutes to get over the wall and dash into the village. Then he'd have to stick to the alleyways and use cover. Once he heard the footsteps above him start to go farther away, he waited a few moments and started to climb the wall pretty easily. As soon as he got on top of the wall, he quickly crouched and took a look around. He saw there were no ANBUs coming around this way yet. He knew they would soon, so he quickly jumped over the other side and landed in the tree limbs. It was now a matter of getting to the estate, without getting caught. He knew where the estate was, however it was a good bit away. He figured he had about an hour and a half before midnight, then the shifts would change. He needed to get in and gather what he wanted before then. So it was time to move. He quickly dropped down from the trees and dashed into the alleyway in front of him. The estate wasn't that far away, but he couldn't just go out in the open. No, he needed to take a detour and keep under the radar. He quickly ducked behind a dumpster as he heard more footsteps above him. Suddenly two guards dropped down into the alleyway. Did you hear something? One asked. Naruto held in his breath. Kyuubi, can you mask my chakra signature? Just in case one of them is a censor. He asked the Kyuubi. He waited for a response. I thought I heard something. The another guard said. Naruto hoped the Kyuubi was listening. Okay, done. He finally heard. Finally the guards had left. Naruto waited a few moments again to reappear out from behind the dumpster. He decided to go straight towards for the estate. He couldn't play around here anymore. Before he knew it, he stood before the gates of the Namikaze estate. He looked at the seal on the gate. It was relatively small. It had grooves that swirled around towards the middle. That's a blood seal. Cut your hand and place it on the seal. Your blood will then open the gate. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto nodded and used his nails that were sharper now, to cut his palm open, and he quickly placed it on the seal. He sighed as he pulled his hand back and watched as the blood filled the grooves to the center. Suddenly the whole seal glowed and then it disappeared. The gates started to creak and spur to life as they were opened. He just stared in amazement as he walked up towards the door. He mentally prepared himself for what he was about to find. He knew it was going to be emotional. The tears were already falling. He opened the door and gasped as he saw the inside of the estate. Dust was everywhere, covering everything. It was obviously vacant for a good bit, however how it looked shocked Naruto to his very core. He had no words as he walked around. Then something caught his eye. It was a medium-sized box on a table in the living room. With shaking hands he picked it up and looked at it. On an engraved plate, he could read, "To Naruto." He slowly opened the box and looked inside. There was a piece of paper, and under it was 2 scrolls. He looked at the note first. Dear Naruto, if you're reading this, then we are no longer alive and you have been left alone. There is so much I want to say, with so little time. So I'll start with this. My name is Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage and your father. I'm sure you already know this, but we died on the night you were born. The day the Kyuubi attacked, and I'm sorry for the burden we've given you. As I've said before, there is so little time and so much I want to say. So I'll get on with it. In this box is essentially our wills. One scroll is from me and the other is from your mother. I leave you my 2 prized techniques. The Hiroshin and Rasengan. Hopefully you will be able to master both of them. I am sorry for not being there and I love you. Naruto had tears spilling out from reading the section from his father. He already knew the Rasengan, but the Hiroshin. That was something completely different and equally challenging to learn. His eyes rested on the next portion of the letter. The part from his mother. Hello my son, this is your mother. I'm terribly sorry I'm not there to see you grow up. As Minato said, there is little time. My name is Kushina Uzumaki, a member of the Uzumaki clan of Whirlpool, or better known as Uzushio. I would have loved to be there as you grew up and actually been a mother. I know your life must have been a harsh one and the Kyuubi must have most to do with it. We both are terribly sorry for what you have been burdened with, and we hope you can forgive us. In the scroll I gave you, is my knowledge in seals. I hope you can go farther than both I and your father ever hoped. We both love you and wish you a wonderful life. Love, Minato and Kushina. Naruto finally broke down as the dam shattered and the tears flew out like a river. Eventually, after 15 minutes, his eyes were dry and he was standing up, breathing slowly. I will make you guys proud. He said loudly. He didn't have to think about it, he would. He decided it was time to leave. What they gave him was good enough. He took the 2 scrolls and the letter and put them in his jacket pockets and walked out the door. Turning back around, he looked at the estate one last time. As soon as he got on the road again, he started sprinting towards the wall again. He was ready to get to Suna. However, he heard someone behind him. Stop. It was a female. He turned to see a Anbu member. However, the mask was familiar. It was Neko. His eyes widened as he looked at the girl before him. Who are you? She asked. It was pitch dark, so she couldn't see his face. He didn't answer. He had no doubt. She could tell it was him by his voice. Not answering, huh? I guess I'll force it out. She said loudly. She quickly pulled out her sword and went into a stance. Shit. Without Samahata, this wouldn't be easy at all for him. So it was time to improvise. No doubt, the moment he unleashed some jutsu, more guards would be here. So now it was time for the distraction and to take care of her. So, he dispelled a clone. The other knew what to do. Suddenly a large amount of explosions rocketed to the sky and Naruto knew that was enough. Neko was momentarily distracted, and he took that chance. Raiden. Jaibashi, he said. A medium-sized wave soared towards Neko. It gave Naruto a chance to follow it up. He quickly started to form the familiar jutsu that everyone knew. He ran towards her and aimed it at the ground. Rasengan, he shouted. The Rasengan smashed into the ground, kicking up debris and dust, giving Naruto some cover. Before Neko knew it, a kick had sent her flying into a nearby wall. Fading into unconsciousness, she heard a soft voice right next to her. Sorry Neko, I had to do this, he said. She knew who it was. Tsunade didn't know what to expect. They were still trying to figure out who was being a string of explosions a few nights ago. It was weird, they were placed at points that no casualties would happen. So when an Anbu rushed into her room, her thoughts were brought back to that night. Why are you here? She asked. The Anbu was panting, she could tell, even if they had a mask on. Yugao Azuki has woken up, they said suddenly. Tsunade widened her eyes after hearing that. Yugao was found unconscious shortly after the explosions were detonated. She was lying in an alleyway near the Namikaze estate. She had been asleep for a few days afterwards. Tsunade nodded and instantly got up and walked out, leaving Iruka, who knew Tsunade had more important matters to attend to. Before she knew it, she was already in the room with Yugao. There was also a squad of Anbu to watch over her. Can you tell me what happened? Tsunade started out. Yugao nodded numbly and began. I was patrolling at night and as the night continued on and my patrol did as well, I was near the Namikaze compound when I saw someone who was near it. They looked like they just came out of it. Since it was open, I figured they were the one to get inside. I went to intercept and that's when a fight started. She started. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. She knew about the Namikaze estate being broken into, but that was nearly impossible. It had a blood seal on it. Shit. Guards. I want all of you to search the nearby areas of the estate, look for signs of where they were going. Tsunade said suddenly. Yugao looked at Tsunade suddenly. Tsunade waited till the guards disappeared to speak up. You realize who it was, do you? She asked rhetorically. Yugao nodded. I heard his voice before I fell unconscious, it was him. She said. Tsunade sighed and rubbed her temples. Naruto had just made a mess, and she had to clean it up. Well, this is now a serious problem. I know that he used those explosions most likely as a distraction, as you probably became an obstacle in his plan. This won't go easy with the council. I have a feeling it will be a long week. Tsunade said suddenly. Yugao knew that was true. She knew things were going to get very tense soon. She only hoped that it could go smoothly for Naruto, however, she knew otherwise. Scene break. T&I. One Anko Mitarashi was not expecting to be called into T&I on short notice. The Anbu in front of her wasn't going to take no for an answer either. She sighed and spoke up. What's this all about anyways? She asked. The Anbu just shook his head. I don't know all the facts, all I was told by Ibiki, that he wants to see you now. He said. Anko widened her eyes. If Ibiki sent him, then it was serious, and she knew better than to make him wait. She quickly nodded and threw her dango stick in a nearby garbage bin and vanished in a shunshin. She reappeared right in front of the T&I building and didn't waste any time walking in and going straight for Ibiki. Once he saw her he smirked. She would like this. Why have you called me in? She asked. Ibiki took out a folder and handed it to her. Anko's eyes widened as she read the profile. She knew who this was just by his picture. Why me though? Can't you get one of the others to interrogate him? She asked suddenly. Ibiki shook his head. Sorry. Hokage's orders. He said simply. Anko's eyes widened once again. She knew better to refuse now. That would be utterly foolish of her. Nodded her head, she sighed. Sasuke Uchiha, huh? Plenty of ways to get info out of that brat. Okay, here's a list of what I need. She said with a grin. She quickly wrote a few items down and handed it to him. Ibiki shivered when he saw her grin. He knew it very well. Sasuke didn't know what was coming, and when he looked at the list, he shivered even more. This kid was in for a rough night. No doubt. Ibiki walked out of the room for a moment and came back with a bag. Anko took a look inside and smirked. It was time. Well, I better greet our guest, huh? She joked. Ibiki shook his head. Don't scare him too much, Anko. He said. She grinned and replied to him. No promises. She said. Ibiki then watched her walk to the interrogation room, and he knew it was going to be a long night for Sasuke Uchiha. The moment Anko walked to the one-way panel of glass, she saw him and smirked. It was go time. The moment Sasuke saw Anko, he snarled at her. Let me go, you bitch. He shouted angrily. Anko walked to the table where he was handcuffed and smirked. Not until you give me what I want. She said. Sasuke scoffed and laughed loudly. Do your worst. You ain't getting shit from me. He shouted. Anko grinned. Very well, she said suddenly. She then put the bag on the table and gave a sadistic grin. You are a missing nin, who went to that snake for power. It just so happens that I happen to have the same curse mark as you, and I know what it takes to make it tick, but first we're going to have some fun. She said loudly. Sasuke's eyes widened as Anko dug in the bag and pulled out a set ninja tools. They were standard order. However, they seemed to be a bit different. They were rusted and dull. Anko picked out a senbon and held it up. The tip was all black, as if it had something coated on it. You see this? This is my favorite little concoction, a little nausea and a special poison I created. She said with a grin. Sasuke's eyebrow rose as he heard her. What special poison? He asked. Her grin went full-blown, and sent shivers down his spine as he saw it. The human body's pain receptors are responsible for transmitting a signal to the brain, which makes you feel it. This little poison amplifies it, giving it hypersensitivity. Everything you feel will be 10 times worse. She said loudly. Sasuke's eyes widened as he heard her, and he struggled against his bonds. That was a very cruel method to start off with. Before he knew it, she was behind him. Let's try this out, shall we? She whispered in his ear. He screamed as she stabbed him in the back of the neck with it. It seemed she was just getting started. Scene break with Tsunade. Tsunade knew to expect this. She currently found herself sitting in a room with all the clan heads and the civilian council. They weren't going to go away either, and she knew she couldn't protect Naruto. Everyone had their own opinions and it was giving her a headache. Everyone calm down, she shouted as she slammed her fist on the desk. Shikaku looked at Tsunade with a serious expression. He knew Naruto was like a son to her. However, that didn't dispute the fact that he caused quite a havoc in the past few days. It was time to do something. Something needed to be done about it. What are we going to do then? He spoke up. Tsunade looked to the Nara and sighed. She realized he was right. Get his head on a pike. Haruno shouted loudly. She flinched when she felt killing intent directed at her. Ms. Haruno, I know you have mixed feelings about Naruto, like most of the elders here do. However, I will not take kindly to insults to the child. He is too important. Anything we do will no doubt only provoke him further. She said suddenly. Inoichi decided to speak up. Yes, that is true, but the past few days have caused quite a stir. Something must be done. He argued. Tsunade sighed once again. She knew she couldn't protect him now. Fine then, how about this? We give him a 25,000 ryo bounty to be captured alive and returned to Konoha. This may give us a chance to bring him back. She said suddenly. She didn't like doing this, but she was in a tight situation now, and she had no choice. However, she knew this would only push him farther away. It seems like a good idea, but we know he won't come willingly. Shikaku said suddenly. Inoichi sighed and looked at his friend. You are right when you say that, but something must be done. We can't sit still and let him get away with this. He countered. Tsunade thought about that for a moment. How about this then? I have information from Jiraiya that he is aiming to become a freelance mercenary, and that he will eventually return to Konoha one day. Shikaku is right, if we provoke him, we may lose any alliance he might offer us in the future. I say we send Jiraiya again towards him and make him pay his debt, whether it be mission to help Konoha, or something along those lines. She suggested. They seemed to mull over that for a minute. Tsunade noticed Danzo narrowing his eyes. It seemed he wasn't too thrilled about that idea. She needed to keep an eye on the old war hawk. It was obvious he was up to something. What if he refuses? Inoichi asked suddenly. Everyone thought about it. Why would he refuse though? Choza said suddenly. Shikaku shook his head. He was outcasted from this village ever since his childhood. It's very likely that he will refuse. He could argue that it was his birthright to get access to Minato's estate. He said suddenly. Then what do we do about him? Sum said suddenly. It seemed they couldn't really do anything, they were backed against a corner. On one hand, if they put a bounty on him, that would burn any bridges that were left, and any chances of him returning. Also, if they tried to force him to do something, it could turn ugly. They had no idea what to do. Then why don't we let him come willingly? Like Tsunade said, he plans to return eventually. When he does, that's when he can pay his debt. Whether it's a sum of ryo, or a few missions to help out the village. Inoichi suggested. Tsunade looked at Inoichi for a moment. That was the most reasonable thing they could do. If they wanted to keep Naruto on their good sides, then that was the way to go. Very well, we will put it to a vote. Those in favor of Inoichi's suggestion? Tsunade asked. The result was expected, it was a majority win. Most of the shinobi voted for it, while the elders didn't. Tsunade nodded, then began to speak up again. That is over with, now is there anything else that someone wants to discuss? She said loudly. Kaharu took this opportunity to speak up. What happened to Sasuke Uchiha? Why is he in T&I? She asked. Tsunade glared at her. He is in T&I for a reason, he defected to Orochimaru for power in an pointless pursuit of revenge. He is staying there until I say otherwise. She said loudly. Tsunade's tone shut Kaharu up. However, that didn't mean Danzo didn't have anything to say, and boy did he. Does that mean you intend to let him become a ninja again? He asked suddenly. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. Something was definitely up with Danzo. He was definitely scheming something, however, Tsunade had no idea on what he wanted. Maybe. It depends on how the next few weeks go. As of now, Team 7 has been disbanded. Kakashi Hatake has been ordered to help teach at the academy, Sasuke is in T&I currently, and Sakura Haruno is on a 1-month suspension. She said suddenly. They were surprised, it seemed Tsunade really meant business. Sasuke Uchiha, what are you hoping to get out of him Tsunade? Inoichi asked suddenly. Tsunade sighed and looked at the Yamanaka. I want info regarding Orochimaru, anything will help. Preferably his subordinates and hideouts, also hopefully information on Akatsuki. Jiraiya knows he was a member once. She replied. Inoichi put his hand on his chin as he thought about it. Who do you have interrogating him? He asked suddenly. Tsunade grinned. Anko Mitarashi. She said. Silence was met with that. Most of the shinobi who knew of her, shivered and cringed. For Sasuke to be interrogated by her, God have mercy on him. She was definitely a sadist, no doubt about it, whatsoever. If anyone could get that info, it would be her as well. They knew that her methods were sometimes a bit unorthodox and frowned upon, but they definitely got the job done. After all, results were results. Are you sure that's a good idea leaving him to her? Inoichi asked suddenly. Tsunade chuckled. Well, I know she won't do anything fatal to him. However, she would do anything she could to get the information out of him. I have faith she won't take it too far. After all, Ibiki is there as well, not to mention the other people at T&I. She said suddenly. They sighed as they realized that they couldn't do anything about it. So is there anything else to discuss? Tsunade asked suddenly. Nothing was said, no one had anything to say. That was final, and everyone knew it. Tsunade sighed then began to speak yet again. These actions that have been brought upon the parties are not going to be reversed. She started. Some elders started to speak up, along with some civilians. However, Tsunade wasn't having none of it. Her tone was final, and that was that. No arguing whatsoever. She suddenly got up and started to walk out. It was obvious as to what it meant. The meeting was over. Nothing more to be said. Scene break, with Naruto. Not that far away from Konoha, Naruto found himself sitting by a river. He was about to look at his father's notes a bit before heading to Suna. As he sat by the riverbed, he stared aimlessly at the scroll that was in front of him. Unopened, he knew once he started to learn his father's techniques, there was no going back. They would know he was Minato Namikaze's son, that much would be obvious. It was time. As Naruto opened the scroll, he couldn't help but feel nervous. He decided to start with the Rasengan, even if he knew it already. There might be more than he knew, something to add to it. That was what drove him to start on that subject. So he started to read. Son, this is one of my prized techniques. I've taught it to several people. Some you may know, some you might not. The Rasengan is a very powerful jutsu if correctly used. I've based it on the bijudamas the biju themselves use. There are 3 steps to use it correctly below. Naruto stared at the small passage that was in the scroll, the bijudama huh? He quickly thought. He didn't know of the technique that well, but he knew of its power. To base that jutsu off the bijudama. Minato Namikaze was a real genius. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto looked up as he heard the fox, it was something astounding. To base the Rasengan after the move the Biju were known for. Minato Namikaze was a real genius after all, and Naruto was proud of that fact. He started to feel tears as he thought more about it. His father. Naruto then noticed a small passage at the end of then note, he knew it was about the Rasengan. However, he didn't know what it entailed. So he started to read it. Naruto, this part is for when you have successfully performed the Rasengan. As you know, there are 3 steps to use the Rasengan, but that is not all. No, the Rasengan isn't complete. There is an additional step you can do. Even I haven't completed it. This is the final step to the Rasengan, and I hope you can successfully do it. The step is to combine elemental manipulation with the Rasengan, thus making it a jutsu with the elemental nature. Doing this will make it more powerful than it already is. However, it is no simple task. As I said before, even I couldn't achieve this. I hope you will be the one to complete the Rasengan Naruto. This is all I have for you. Naruto stood up and looked up to the skies. He promised himself that he would do it. He knew it would be a challenge. However, he welcomed the challenge. Elemental manipulation with a jutsu that doesn't have a nature is very difficult. Naruto, I think you should try with the fox fire before you try with your wind affinity. This way, you have something to go off when you go for wind. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto nodded, and began to call upon the Kyuubi's chakra. Soon his eyes had turned red and the familiar cloak of demonic chakra was covering him. He started to breath in and out, trying not to lose control. He knew that this process was going to require a large amount of control. To combine the fox fire with the Rasengan, all while in this form, would be draining a lot more than usual. As the familiar sphere was formed in his hand, he started to summon the fire. However, it was resisting, and it wouldn't do as he wanted it to. After about 15 minutes of concentrating and maintaining his focus, the fire started to swirl around the Rasengan a little. However, due to the fact he was already low on energy from his trip to Konoha, the Rasengan instantly faded along with the fox fire. Soon the demonic cloak faded too, leaving Naruto panting for breath. You're exhausted, Naruto. You haven't had the proper amount of time to rest and recoup your strength. However, you're not that far away from Konoha, so you don't have that option now. I suggest you head off towards Suna, then find some place to lay low. The Kyuubi said suddenly. Naruto nodded meekly and stood up. He knew he just sent a beacon as well. Anyone would have felt that power. He wasn't that far away from Konoha too. So it was only a matter of time before they sent search parties. It was time to go. With those thoughts in his head, he started on his way towards the land of wind. It was a few hours later and he finally arrived at the gates of the village. It looked just like it did before. It was just morning, he had been going throughout the whole night. He wanted to get something to eat. However, he didn't really know the village that well. It was 15 minutes later and he finally found a food stand. It wasn't nothing fancy, or rundown. Just a simple shop for food. He walked up to the stand and waited for someone to take his order. However, as the person walked over, their eyes widened. Naruto rose an eyebrow as he wondered what could be going on. However, before he could speak up, he felt something against his neck. It was a kunai. He subtly looked over his shoulder to see Temari with a fierce look in her eyes. Don't move or else, she said seriously. In one hand was her kunai, and in the other was her fan, and it was slightly open. Naruto started looking around for some kind of exit or escape route. However, he was cornered, and no doubt in his mind, that if he ran for it, that any relation he could have made with Suna would go down the drain. Sighing, he put his hands up and turned around. You got me, he said.